I didn't lose my job. I didn't fail an exam. I almost lost my marriage. Because the woman sitting at our family dinners was secretly working against me. And she wasn't a stranger. She was my sister-in-law. It all started on a rainy Thursday evening, the kind where the sky looks like it's about to collapse and the world feels a little heavier than usual. My husband, Mark, and I had just celebrated our third wedding anniversary. We weren't perfect, but we were happy. Or so I thought. We had our routines: Sunday morning pancakes, late-night movie marathons, and those silly inside jokes that only made sense to us. I genuinely believed we were building something real, something lasting. But lurking in the shadows of our happiness was my sister-in-law, Jessica. She was Mark's younger sister, and from the moment I met her, I sensed a strange tension. At first, I chalked it up to sibling rivalry or maybe just the awkwardness of blending families. But over time, her comments became sharper, her smiles more forced. She'd make little digs about my cooking, my job, even the way I dressed. Mark always brushed it off. That's just being Jess. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. The real trouble began when Jessica announced she was pregnant. The whole family was overjoyed, and I genuinely tried to be happy for her. I helped plan her baby shower, picked out decorations, and even spent hours baking her favorite cupcakes. But as the big day approached, I started noticing strange things. Jessica would whisper to Mark when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd send him late-night texts, and when I asked about them, she'd laugh it off, saying she just needed advice about baby stuff. One night, I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I was coming downstairs to grab a glass of water when I heard Jessica's voice, low and urgent, coming from the living room. Mark was with her, and they were talking in hushed tones. I couldn't make out every word, but I heard enough to know something was very, very wrong. She can't find out, Mark. If she does, it'll ruin everything. My heart pounded in my chest. What couldn't I find out? What were they hiding from me? I stood frozen on the stairs, my mind racing with possibilities. Was Mark cheating on me? Was Jessica in some kind of trouble? I wanted to confront them right then and there, but fear held me back. Instead, I crept back upstairs, my mind spinning with questions. The next morning, I tried to act normal, but every interaction felt loaded with secrets. Mark was distant, distracted. Jessica, on the other hand, seemed almost smug, as if she knew something I didn't. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was overreacting, reading too much into things. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. A few days later, I got a call from my best friend, Emily. She sounded worried. "Hey, are you okay? I heard some weird rumors about you and Mark." My stomach dropped. "What kind of rumors?" She hesitated. "I don't want to upset you, but people are saying Mark's been cheating with someone close to you." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I thanked Emily and hung up, my hands shaking. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. I started paying closer attention to everything: texts, phone calls, even the way Mark and Jessica looked at each other. The more I watched, the more convinced I became that something was going on. The day of the baby shower arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. I plastered on a smile and tried to focus on making everything perfect for Jessica. The house was filled with laughter, gifts, and the smell of freshly baked cupcakes. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. As the party went on, I noticed Jessica pulling Mark aside more than once. They'd disappear into the kitchen or the hallway, whispering urgently. My suspicions grew with every passing minute. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to confront them right there, in front of everyone. I waited until Jessica was opening her gifts, surrounded by friends and family. The room was buzzing with excitement, everyone oohing and awing over tiny onesies and stuffed animals. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. "Jessica," I said, my voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Is there something you want to tell us? Something you've been hiding?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to Jessica, who looked up at me, her face pale. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know what you mean," Jessica stammered, her hands trembling. I looked at Mark. "Mark? Do you want to explain what's been going on between you and Jessica?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. I pulled out my phone and played a recording I'd made the night I overheard their conversation. The words echoed through the room. "She can't find out, Mark. If she does, it'll ruin everything." Gasps filled the air. Jessica's face crumpled, and Mark looked like he wanted to disappear. "That's not what it sounds like," Jessica tried to protest, but the damage was done. The room erupted into chaos. Accusations, tears, and angry shouts. In that moment, I realized the truth. Jessica had been spreading lies about me, trying to turn Mark against me. She'd told him I was cheating, that I didn't love him, that I was only with him for his money. She'd manipulated him, played on his insecurities, and tried to destroy our marriage from the inside out. But now her lies were exposed for everyone to see. And as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of her deception, I felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The room was a storm of voices. Some raised in shock, others in anger, and a few in disbelief. Jessica's friends looked at her with wide eyes, their hands frozen mid-clap, while Mark's parents exchanged worried glances. I could see the confusion and hurt on their faces, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for Jessica. Almost. Jessica tried to regain control, her voice trembling as she stood up, clutching her baby bump as if it were a shield. "You don't understand. She's twisting everything. Mark, tell them what really happened." Mark looked at her, then at me, his face pale and drawn. He opened his mouth, but the words caught in his throat. I could see the war raging inside him. Loyalty to his sister, guilt over what he'd allowed to happen, and the dawning realization that the truth was finally out. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Jessica, I have nothing to gain by making this up. You've been trying to poison Mark against me for months. You told him I was cheating, that I was planning to leave him, that I was only after his money. You even tried to convince his parents that I was unstable." Jessica's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but all she found were faces filled with doubt and disappointment. Her best friend, Rachel, shook her head slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line. Even Mark's mother, who had always defended Jessica, looked away, unable to meet her daughter's gaze. Mark finally found his voice, his words barely above a whisper. "Jess, why? Why would you do this?" Jessica's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I thought I was scared, okay? I thought you were drifting away from the family. Ever since you married her, you've changed. You don't come around as much, you don't call. I just wanted things to go back to the way they were." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. For a moment, the anger in the room softened, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. I realized then that Jessica's actions, as cruel as they were, came from a place of fear and insecurity. She was losing her brother, and instead of reaching out, she lashed out. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. I turned to Mark, my voice gentle but firm. "Mark, I love you. I always have. But I can't keep fighting for our marriage if you don't trust me. If you believe her lies over my truth, then maybe we're not as strong as I thought." Mark's eyes filled with tears, and he reached for my hand. "I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I let Jess get in my head, and I doubted you when I shouldn't have. Can you ever forgive me?" I looked at him, searching his face for sincerity. I saw the pain, the regret, and the love that had drawn me to him in the first place. I squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of the moment settle between us. "I want to," I said quietly. "But it's going to take time. Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight." Jessica sank back into her chair, her sobs racking her body. The guests began to murmur, some quietly gathering their things, others offering awkward words of comfort. The baby shower was over, the celebration replaced by a sense of loss and betrayal. As people filed out, Mark's mother approached me, her eyes red-rimmed. "I'm so sorry, dear. I had no idea Jessica was capable of something like this. If there's anything we can do." I nodded, grateful for her support. "Thank you. I just need some time to process everything." When the last guest had left, the house was eerily quiet. Jessica sat alone on the couch, her head in her hands. Mark and I stood in the kitchen, the remnants of the party scattered around us. Half-eaten cupcakes, unopened gifts, and a banner that now felt painfully ironic. Welcome, little one. Mark broke the silence. What do we do now? I sighed, feeling the exhaustion settle into my bones. I don't know. But I do know that we need to talk. Really talk. About everything. No more secrets, no more lies. He nodded, his expression earnest. I want that too. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. We sat down at the kitchen table, the weight of the day pressing down on us. I told him everything, how I'd felt Jessica's resentment from the beginning, how her words and actions had chipped away at my confidence, how I'd started to doubt myself. Mark listened, his face etched with guilt and sorrow. I should have seen it, he said quietly. I should have protected you. It's not just your fault, I replied. We both let things slide. We both ignored the warning signs. But we can't change the past. All we can do is decide what happens next. As we talked, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what Jessica had tried to destroy. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, is hard to mend. Later that night, after Mark had gone to bed, I found Jessica sitting on the porch, staring out into the darkness. I hesitated, then joined her, the cool night air wrapping around us like a shroud. She didn't look at me, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I studied her profile, searching for the sister-in-law I'd once hoped to be friends with. Why, Jess? Why did you hate me so much? She shook her head, tears glistening on her cheeks. I didn't hate you. I was just jealous, I guess. You came into our family and suddenly everything changed. Mark was always my protector, my best friend. When you married him, I felt like I lost him. Her words were raw, honest, and for the first time, I saw the pain behind her actions. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it made her human. I'm not trying to take him away from you, I said softly. There's enough love to go around. But you can't destroy other people's happiness just because you're hurting. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know. I'm so sorry. We sat in silence, the weight of forgiveness hanging between us. I didn't know if we'd ever be close, but in that moment, I saw a path forward. A chance to heal, if not forget. The days that followed were a blur of awkward conversations, tense silences, and tentative steps toward healing. Mark and I moved through the house like ghosts, careful not to disturb the fragile peace that had settled over us. Jessica stayed with Mark's parents for a while, giving us space to breathe and process everything that had happened. The baby shower, once meant to be a celebration, had become a turning point. A moment when all the secrets and lies were dragged into the light. I spent a lot of time alone, replaying the events in my mind. I wondered if there was something I could have done differently, some way to have prevented the rift that had formed between Jessica and me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that her pain ran deeper than anything I could have fixed. She was fighting her own battles, haunted by fears of abandonment and change. Mark, for his part, was determined to make things right. He apologized every day, not just with words, but with actions. He started coming home earlier, making time for us to talk and reconnect. He listened. Really listened. When I told him how much Jessica's lies had hurt me, how they'd made me question my own worth. He promised to never let anyone come between us again, and for the first time in months, I believed him. But trust is a delicate thing. It doesn't return all at once. It rebuilds itself slowly, like a house after a storm. There were moments when I'd catch Mark glancing at his phone, and my heart would race with old fears. There were nights when I'd lie awake, wondering if I'd ever feel truly safe in our marriage again. But each day, the doubts grew a little quieter, replaced by hope and determination. One afternoon, about a week after the baby shower, Jessica called me. Her voice was hesitant, almost childlike. Can we talk? Just the two of us. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to face her again. But something in her tone and earnestness I hadn't heard before made me agree. We met at a small cafe downtown, away from the prying eyes of family and friends. Jessica looked tired, her face drawn and pale. She fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding my gaze. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she began, her voice trembling. but I need you to know how sorry I am. I was so wrapped up in my own pain that I didn't see how much I was hurting you. I let my jealousy turn into something ugly, and I almost destroyed your marriage because of it. I listened, my own emotions swirling inside me. Anger, sadness, relief. They all mingled together, making it hard to speak. Finally, I found my voice. Jessica, what you did hurt me more than I can say. But I also see how much you're hurting. I don't know if I can ever forget what happened, but I'm willing to try and move forward. For Mark, for the baby, and for our family. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she reached across the table, her hand trembling. Thank you. I promise, I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our coffee and letting the weight of the past week settle between us. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. A small step toward healing the wounds that had been inflicted. As the weeks passed, life slowly returned to a new kind of normal. Jessica started therapy, determined to work through her issues and become a better sister, daughter, and soon-to-be mother. Mark and I continued to rebuild our relationship, focusing on honesty and open communication. We went on long walks, cooked dinner together, and even started planning a weekend getaway. Something we hadn't done in ages. But the scars remained. There were moments when the pain would resurface, triggered by a memory or a careless word. I'd find myself pulling away, retreating into old patterns of doubt and suspicion. But each time, Mark would reach for me, grounding me in the present, reminding me that we were stronger together. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Mark turned to me, his expression serious. I know I let you down. I let Jessica's words get in my head, and I almost lost you because of it. But I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You're my family. You always will be. His words washed over me, soothing the ache in my heart. I leaned into him, feeling the warmth of his embrace. I love you, Mark. I just need you to keep showing me that I can trust you. He nodded, pressing a kiss to my forehead. I will. Every day, for as long as it takes. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, the wounds began to heal. Jessica gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, and despite everything that had happened, I found myself genuinely happy for her. I visited her in the hospital, holding the tiny bundle in my arms and marveling at the miracle of new life. Jessica looked at me, her eyes filled with gratitude and hope. Thank you for being here, she whispered. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm so glad you're part of my family. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over me. We're all just trying to do our best, Jess. That's all any of us can do. The journey wasn't easy, and there were still days when the past threatened to overshadow the present. But with time, patience, and a lot of hard work, we found our way back to each other. Our family, once fractured by lies and betrayal, began to mend, piece by piece. Looking back, I realized that the baby shower. The moment when everything fell apart. Was also the moment when we started to rebuild. It was a painful, messy, and necessary reckoning, one that forced us to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. But in the end, it brought us closer together, forging bonds that were stronger than before. Months passed, and the seasons changed, but the memory of that day, the day Jessica's lies were exposed, never truly faded. It lingered in the background, a reminder of how fragile trust can be and how quickly it can be shattered. But it also became a testament to the strength of forgiveness and the resilience of family, even when it's been pushed to the breaking point. Jessica's baby, Lily, became a symbol of new beginnings for all of us. The first time I held her, I felt a wave of emotion I hadn't expected. Love, hope, and a fierce determination to protect the innocence she represented. Jessica watched me with a mixture of relief and gratitude, and in that moment, I saw not the woman who had tried to ruin my marriage, but a sister-in-law desperate for a second chance. Our relationship was never the same as it had been before the betrayal, but it grew into something more honest. We learned to speak openly, to acknowledge the pain and the mistakes, and to move forward without pretending the past hadn't happened. Jessica apologized again and again, not just with words, but with actions. She respected my boundaries, included me in family gatherings, and made a genuine effort to rebuild trust. Mark and I, too, found a new rhythm. We attended couples counseling, where we learned to communicate in ways we never had before. We talked about our fears, our dreams, and the things that had gone unsaid for too long. There were tears, arguments, and moments when I wondered if we'd ever truly recover. But each time, we chose to stay, to fight for what we had, and to believe in the possibility of healing. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, Mark took my hand and looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen in a long time. "I know I can never erase what happened," he said quietly. "But I want you to know that I'm grateful for you. For your strength, your forgiveness, and your willingness to give us another chance. I don't deserve it, but I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to." I squeezed his hand, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in my heart. "We both made mistakes, Mark. But we're here now, and that's what matters. We can't change the past, but we can choose how we move forward." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still scars, still moments of doubt and pain. But there was also laughter, love, and a sense of unity that hadn't existed before. We learned to celebrate the small victories, the quiet evenings at home, the shared smiles, the simple act of holding hands without fear. Jessica's journey was just beginning. Motherhood changed her in ways none of us could have predicted. She became softer, more patient, and more aware of the impact her actions had on those around her. She worked hard to earn back the trust she'd lost, not just from me, but from the entire family. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments when old habits threatened to resurface. But each time, she chose to do better, to be better. One afternoon, as we sat in the park watching Lily play, Jessica turned to me, her eyes shining with sincerity. "I know I can never make up for what I did, but I want you to know how much I admire you. You could have destroyed me, but instead, you gave me a chance to change." I'll never forget that. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. "We all make mistakes, Jess. What matters is what we do after. You're doing the work, and that's all anyone can ask." As Lily toddled over to us, giggling and reaching for her mother, I realized that forgiveness isn't about forgetting or pretending the hurt never happened. It's about choosing to let go, to move forward, and to believe in the possibility of something better. It's about recognizing the humanity in each other. The flaws, the fears, the desperate need to be loved and accepted. The rest of the family slowly came around, too. Mark's parents, once devastated by the rift between their children, found hope in the way we all worked to heal. Family dinners became less tense, filled with laughter and stories instead of awkward silences. There were still moments of discomfort, but they grew fewer and farther between. Looking back, I realized that the day I exposed Jessica's lies wasn't just about revenge or vindication. It was about reclaiming my voice, standing up for myself, and refusing to let someone else define my worth. It was about drawing a line in the sand and saying enough. But it was also about opening the door to forgiveness, to the possibility of rebuilding what had been broken. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be sitting here, holding my sister-in-law's baby and laughing with my husband, I wouldn't have believed you. The pain was too raw, the betrayal too deep. But time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges, and real, honest love, has a way of healing wounds you thought would never close. So, if you're listening to this, and you've been betrayed by someone you love, know this: you are stronger than you think. You have the power to stand up for yourself, to demand the truth, and to choose what happens next. You can draw boundaries, speak your truth, and still leave room for forgiveness, if that's what you want. My story isn't unique. Families are messy, complicated, and sometimes deeply painful. But they're also capable of incredible growth, healing, and transformation. The day I exposed Jessica's lies was the day I took back control of my life. It was the day I chose honesty over silence, courage over fear, and love over resentment. And in the end, that choice made all the difference.